Welcome to our video on Kingswaysoft SSIS Integration Toolkit for Microsoft SharePoint. Today, we'll be going over our SharePoint components which can connect to your on-premises as well as online SharePoint instances. As a first step, after you have installed our components, open an Integration Services project and within a package inside it, right-click on the Connection Manager section. From the list that comes up, choose the SharePoint Connection Manager. Double-click on it or select Add to open up the Connection Manager user interface. In the Connection Manager, the first thing to choose would be the service endpoint. We support two service endpoints: REST for SharePoint Online or On-Premises Server 2016 and above using OData, and SOAP for most SharePoint Online, On-Premises, and Federated Server installations. Choosing SOAP would show you the authentication type by default as Active Directory. This is for on-prem instances, and you could enter the service URL followed by the username, password, and the domain to authenticate. The second option is Federation or claim-based authentication, which requires a home realm URI along with the username and password. The third option is Online Federation, which is also username and password-based basic authentication mechanism. Next, let's choose the service endpoint as REST, and this has the Active Directory authentication type available as well as the OAuth type, which is what we would be going over in this video. OAuth type is an important authentication standard. Let's enter our service URL, which points to a subsite that we have. There are three OAuth types that we support. The first one is authorization code, in which you could generate a token using Azure App Credentials and work with it. The second one is certificate type, which requires the client app ID, certificate thumbprint, and the tenant information. And the third type is the client credentials using custom app. For this, the app creation is done different from the usual Azure app, and instead, the app is created in SharePoint portal. Enter the required details as shown here, and the app is created with the credentials. And you could provide additional permissions as required. In this video, we'll be going over the authorization code OAuth type, and for this, choose the option and click on Get New Token button, which will open up the token generator page. Now, to get the required client credentials, you would navigate to Azure portal and select App Registrations. In here, you would see all your applications created within the tenant. And to create a new app, click on New Registration. Provide a new name to identify the app, and then choose the tenant type as single or multi-tenant. The redirect URI is required when it comes to authorization code, as we would need a URL to which the token code need to be redirected to. For this reason, choose the platform as web and then provide any generic URL of your choice. Note that this needs to be a valid HTTP URL without any redirections of its own and can even be the local host. Going to the app that we have already created, you could see that in the overview page, the client ID, tenant, and other information is available. The secret, if not yet created, or if it's expired, can be generated from the Certificate and Secrets page. Click on New Client Secret and provide a name as an identifier, and then choose the expiry for it. Note that once you generate the secret, you would need to copy out the value in the value field and not the secret ID. The value is the secret and which will be used for the authentication. This will need to be saved at the first time you create it, as in the next login, the value will be masked and not retrievable. Next, navigate to API Permissions, where you can provide the permissions required for your SharePoint authentication. Click on Add a Permission and select the API and its required permissions as needed. And finally, back to the redirect URI, you would see that in our case, we simply provide our company website, as it's a simple address with no redirections of its own. Once you have the required credentials, enter them in the fields allocated in the Connection Manager token generator. Choose the scope as either the default one, or click on the unlock icon to choose other scopes as required. Click on OK and you would be navigated to the login screen. Choose or enter the account details that would be used to authorize the app credentials to access the data. This will redirect you to the redirection link that you had provided previously, and you would see that it's appended with the token code. Copy out the entire URL and paste it in the prompt that has come up in the Connection Manager and click OK. Enter an alphanumeric password of your choice and save the token file in a location. Note that this password encrypts the sensitive credentials in the token file and will always be required to use the token file for authentication within our SharePoint Connection Manager. Click on Test Connection to validate the connection and you should see a successful message. Now, moving over to the advanced settings, there are a few miscellaneous options you could select from if required. The Retry on Intermittent Errors is designed to help recover from possible intermittent outages or disruption of service. It prevents the integration process from stopping due to temporary issues. Enabling this option will allow service calls to be retried for certain failures. A service call may be retried up to 4 times at different back-off intervals before an exception is fired. Multi-authentication site option would be enabled if it is a multi-authentication SharePoint site. Ignore certificate errors option can be used to ignore those SSL certificate errors when connecting to SharePoint server in case your SharePoint server is using a temporary SSL certificate. Note that enabling the Ignore Certificate Errors option is generally not recommended, particularly for a production instance. Unless there is a strong reason to believe the connection is secure, such as the network communication is only happening in an internal infrastructure, this option should be unchecked for best security. And when this option is enabled, it applies to all HTTP-based SSL connections in the same job process, and it is not limited to SharePoint connections. Authentication cookie name can be provided for SOAP Federation-based authentication as per the requirement. Avoid solo batch request field when checked. Will not use batch-based query for the requests when required under certain circumstances. The proxy mode option allows you to specify how you want to configure the proxy server setting. There are 3 options available: no proxy, auto detect for using system configured proxy, and manual for providing the proxy details manually. And the proxy authentication required field can be checked to enter additional credentials for the proxy. Going back to the general page, one thing to note here would be that we support both file system path for on-prem deployments and shared access signature SAS URL generated from a location in Azure Blob Storage for the token files for cloud-based deployment models. Once you have verified everything, click on OK to save and close the Connection Manager. Once you have the Connection Manager set up, drag and drop the SharePoint source component from the SSIS toolbox within a data flow task. Double-click to open the source user interface and choose the Connection Manager from the list of available ones. Clicking on the source list or library option gives a list of available lists and document libraries. By default, it shows only those that are not hidden, and if you wish to view the hidden ones, then click on the checkbox Show Hidden. And then when you select the drop-down list again, it shows all the lists and libraries available to the user. After selecting a source list, you can select a view if required. This drop-down will be populated with the selected list's available views. Selecting a view can be used to help filter for desired list items. This is an optional field and can be left as empty if no view is needed. The batch size option allows you to specify how many records you want to retrieve each time. You could increase or decrease it to find the right match for your data pool. The Retrieve First Page option can be used to limit the number of records to return when reading from SharePoint. When the option is enabled, the number specified in the batch size would be used as the limit parameter. The Document Scope option allows you to specify what sub-items, if any, that you wish to retrieve. The available modes are root level, files only, that retrieves only the file items specified at root level, files and folders, which retrieves the file and folders items specified at root level, recursive, files only, which retrieves the file item specified at source list and its subfolders recursively, recursive all, files and folders, to retrieve the file and folder item specified at source list and its subfolders recursively. The Include Hidden Fields option allows you to specify whether the hidden fields are read and returned. And by default, SharePoint returns ID prefixes for a number of fields such as look fields. The return value of those fields are in such a format that those IDs may not have any business value for the other side of the integration, in which case you can enable the option to remove them from the return values. You can enable Download Version History option in order to retrieve the available versions for each document in your SharePoint document library. When this option is checked, a second output of the source component called Version History document library will be available, which would include the available versions of your document. and you can choose up to how many versions to download. Specify 0 to download all versions. This feature currently only supports SharePoint document libraries but not lists. Moving on to the CAML or Camel Query Filter section, click on the Launch Query Designer to open up the Query Designer page where you can create your own Camel query by using the user interface provided. You can choose one or multiple filters and select the operator and the value, and add either and or conditions to customize your condition. The Query Designer also supports sorting, and you can choose the records to be sorted in ascending or descending order of fields. Note that the Query Designer does not show those hidden fields by default. In order to show the hidden fields, you would need to click the Show Hidden Fields checkbox. The Insert Variable option would show all available user and system variables and parameters that can be used to parameterize the Camel query. And clicking the Refresh Component button causes the component to retrieve the latest metadata and update each field to its most recent metadata. The Columns page of the SharePoint source component shows you all available columns from the SharePoint list that you specified on the general page. It shows the display name, field name, and data type for the fields. You could select all or just select only those fields that are required to be read from the SharePoint instance. The Attachment Settings page of the SharePoint source component allows you to specify how you would like to handle lists with file attachments or reading document library files. The checkbox, Enable Downloading of Attachments and Documents, enables or disables this page. There are two options for the download destination dropdown: Save to File System, Write to Output Data columns. If you specify the file system option, attachments from your SharePoint source list will be downloaded to a file system folder, and you can choose the path from the Browse for Folder window. The prefix file name with column data option is valid if you specified the file system option. You can append some data to the prefix of the file names to be created by specifying a column to pull the data from. This value is optional but may help prevent potential file name conflicts. If you specify the Output Data Columns option, attachments from your SharePoint source list will be inserted into a data column in the SSIS output buffer. The column prefix option is valid if you specified the Output Data Column option. You must specify a value here to be used in creating the SSIS output buffer column name, and column names to be created will be suffixed with a number depending on the maximum number of files per list item to download. As you can see, when we save and connect the source to a destination and check if output column option is chosen, the file binary content and name are available in the output metadata based on the prefix that we had provided. Now we move on to the SharePoint destination component. Here, we have added a data spawner component to act as a dummy source for the data flow. From the SSIS toolbox, drag and drop the SharePoint destination component and connect the source to it. Choose the connection manager from the list of available connections. The SharePoint list option allows you to specify which SharePoint list or document library to write data to. By default, it shows only those that are not hidden, and if you wish to view the hidden ones, then click on the checkbox Show Hidden, and then when you select the drop-down list, it shows all the lists and libraries available to your user. The Action option allows you to specify how data should be written to the SharePoint server. There are currently 7 supported action types available: Create, to create new records in SharePoint; Update, to update existing records in SharePoint; Delete, to delete records from SharePoint; Create Folder, that creates folder structure without writing any records or documents in SharePoint; Check-in, which checks in records in SharePoint; Checkout, to check out records in SharePoint; and Moderate, to perform content approval in SharePoint. The Folder Creation Mode option allows you to choose the mode for creating folders on the fly while processing the incoming rows. There are 4 modes to choose from. The first one is Always Try to Create, which is the default option. This will attempt to create the folder structure for each record received using a try and error approach and a local cache. Second is Create based on full cache, which is a recommended option if the folder structure has not been created in the target list or library. This option will populate the full cache for the folder structure in the target list or library, and the overhead can be substantial if the target contains a significant number of records. Third is Create based on folder level cache. This option will build the folder structure cache on an individual folder level instead of the entire list or library. Strength is performant option compared with Create based on full cache option. And fourth is no folder creation, and this is a recommended option when you are certain that your folder structure has already been populated in the target list or library, in which case it will offer the best writing performance. The eye icon next to the option can be used to go through the details regarding the modes. The batch size option allows you to specify how many records you want to submit to the SharePoint request or service each time. You could increase or decrease it to find the right one that suits your requirement. Enabling the multi-threaded writing feature allows you to perform multi-threaded writing when writing data to SharePoint. This option supports a maximum number of 100 threads when writing to SharePoint, and we generally recommend 20 or lower to avoid potential server errors. However, you can adjust these settings based on your environment in order to get the best performance. Finding the right batch size and thread count would be pivotal. If you wish to upload attachments to the SharePoint list items that you create, you can specify the maximum number of attachments per list item to create. Note that this option is available only for lists. SSIS input columns will be created based on the number specified here. The Remove Invalid Characters option, when enabled, will remove any invalid characters from the input, which can avoid an XML exception when the components try to construct the SOAP request to be sent to SharePoint. Those invalid characters are usually not accepted by SharePoint even when posted. Automatically enable and disable audit fields for writing option. When enabled, the destination component will automatically enable those applicable audit fields, if they are selected, for writing before the process. As soon as all the records have been processed, the component will automatically disable them for writing. This way, we keep the user behavior impact to a minimum. Note that when you depend on this feature, you should not use multiple SharePoint destination components to write to the same SharePoint list or library simultaneously with this option enabled, as there is no way to guarantee that all components finish the process at exactly the same time. Clicking the Refresh Component button causes the component to retrieve the latest metadata and update each field to its most recent metadata. By clicking the Map Unmapped Field button, the component will try to map any unmapped fields by matching their names with the input columns from upstream components. And the Clear All Mappings button, when clicked, will reset all your mappings in the destination component. The columns page of the SharePoint destination component allows you to map the columns from upstream components to SharePoint fields for the destination list or library. There are some special fields in the component that require special attention when writing to them. Number 1 would be Virtual Local Relative Path field. This is a special field we added in our component that allows you to specify a local path when writing to the destination list or document library. This is mostly being used for SharePoint document libraries to facilitate writing hierarchical data. Number 2 is Attachment X file name. This is the name field for the attachments for document libraries or lists. The X represents the number of attachments you're trying to create. Number 3 is Attachment X binary content. This is the image file field of the attachments for document libraries and lists. And number 4 is Taxonomy field. This Manage Metadata field is a special lookup field in SharePoint. When writing to this field, you can pass in the text value of the taxonomy item, and our software will perform an implicit lookup. The text lookup feature allows you to perform lookups based on the text values of the target object. To configure the text lookup feature, click the ellipsis button in the text lookup column, which is available on SharePoint Destination Components mapping page if the column is mapped. The text lookup settings screen would open up. When you have checked the Use Text Lookup option, you will see a list of the target objects for the involved lookup field. By using the text lookup option, you can specify and choose which text field should be used for the lookup purpose. You will be presented with a list of the target object for the lookup field. In this case, the target list to look up against is testlib and the target field is title. Therefore, the input value will be looked up against the title field and testlib to get the matching value back. The optional default value when specified, the component will use this default value to perform the lookup should the input value lookup fail. The Ignore Errors and Report Errors on Duplicates are some advanced options that you could use to streamline the lookup configuration. The cache strategy offers two options. Full cache. When chosen, the component will populate a cache of all records from the lookup object before the lookup. This is generally the preferred option for the text lookup feature, particularly when the number of records in the lookup list is small. Partial cache. When chosen, the component will gradually build up lookup cache as the data load progresses. This is the preferred option when the number of records in lookup objects is significantly large. Clicking on the Add Audit Fields button in Columns page will bring you to a screen where you can choose to add the audit fields. Depending on the chosen destination list, the available fields in the list can be different. If the destination list is a document library, only two fields will be available, namely created and modified. You could select them and click on the OK button to add them to the metadata. The error handling page allows you to specify how errors should be handled when they happen. There are three options available: fail on error, redirect rows to error output, and ignore error. When the redirect rows to error output option is selected, rows that fail to write to SharePoint will be redirected to the error output of the destination component. In the section that says additional columns for default output and additional columns for error output respectively, you can select more columns available to be a part of either the default output, which is represented by a blue line, or the error output, which is represented by a red line. Let's select the redirect rows to error output and save and close the component. In the designer, drag and drop two dummy destination components and then connect the default output and error output to each. And when you open the pipeline and check the output metadata for the default output, you would see that SharePoint ID that we chose in the error handling page is a part of it along with the source data. And similarly, in the output metadata for error output, there are the default error code, error column, and SP error message fields, and the additional SP request GUID and SP server response timestamp along with the input columns. We hope this video has helped in understanding the working and features of our SSIS integration toolkit for Microsoft SharePoint. Kingswaysoft. Data integration made easy.